Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is Buff Chuck Butter, and today I'm going to be doing the craziest living room renovation I've ever done. At one point, it seriously looks like the inside of a spaceship, but don't worry, it gets classy. Before I dive into the living room, though, there are 4 lights that have been bugging me like crazy. The first is a ceiling fan that just straight up didn't work, and I don't really use ceiling fans, so I took it out and put a regular light in there. And then I replaced my kitchen, dining room, and hallway with matching lights. They're all LED because I don't like messing with bulbs, and they're all slightly funky, which matches my personality. For regular viewers of the channel, I did not have a video last week, and that's because I was working on this. I had most of this done by the end of the week, and I could have made a video out of it, but it wouldn't have been complete, and I will never put up a mostly finished video just for views. It drives me crazy. I want to see completion in a video, so I decided not to upload the one that I had for last week and just turn it into this video, which does have a really good completion. All that sounded mildly perverted, and I apologize for that. That's just how it comes out of my face hole sometimes. The main thing that I'll be doing in this video is my living room. Now, I have technically 2 living rooms. One is more like an entryway / parlor, and the other one is a traditional living room / family room. Now, that room is big. It's like 25 feet by 17 feet, and it's been really problematic since I moved in. It was originally a 1.5 to a 2-car garage that they converted to a family room, and it had this kind of oddball AstroTurf type of carpet, like porch carpet, and it had just seen better days. It was like a bluish green. It was super thin. It was worn out. All the walls were kind of an off-white cream color that looked like it had been stained with nicotine, and it just looked bad. So I stripped it, and I'm going to redo it completely in my personal style. In order to do that means that I have to move everything from my current living room into that entryway living room in order to make space to work. So I basically ended up making a makeshift living room that only lasted like 5 days before I had to take everything back out and then put it in my regular everyday living room where I'd be spending all my time. So suck it. Now, the floor is concrete, but what you're seeing here is not stained concrete. That is all carpet glue, and I have a really dumb story about the carpet glue. I was told that the easiest way to get that off would be an 8-inch scraper on a pole. So I drove 35 miles to Menards, and it turns out they were sold out. So I got a 4-inch hand scraper, which is all they really had. It's like a razor blade on a stick. That didn't work either. It was on there way too hard. So I drove 35 miles back to Menards and got adhesive stripper. It's like an oil / petroleum based stripper, and it evidently works on all kinds of glue. So I brought it home, put it on, followed the instructions, went down to scrape it off, and nothing. It didn't work. So at this point, I was like, well, I've got to clean this up. So I made up some mop water and just put a bunch of it on there to soak. And then I was like, I will go to a local hardware store that's not 35 miles away and buy a belt sander and literally all their sandpaper, which I did. Came back home, tried that out. It kind of worked and kind of didn't. It wasn't working great. So I was like, all right, just clean up the old adhesive remover real quick and then we'll see what happens. I turn around and the glue where all the mop water was white. It had soaked up the water and softened. So I took my little hand scraper, went across it, and bam, it came right up. Turns out it was water-based glue, and all I needed was mop water. I think I spent somewhere around $600 attempting to get it off before I found out that all I needed was just water and a scraper. So that was fun. It then took me 2 days of scraping by hand before I could get down to bare floor. And if you're wondering whether that sucked or not, it did indeed. It did in fact suck. It was a virtual black hole of suckitude, and I think I would rather suplex myself than ever go through that again. That was terrible. After I finished that, I mopped that whole floor, and while that was drying, I went into the kitchen and installed some under cabinet LED lights and hooked them up to my dot. That way I can say the name that shall not be named for fear of turning on your dot. Turn on the kitchen, and then the kitchen cabinets light up, and then I clap and go, wee! Wee! At this point, almost everything I owned was in my kitchen and dining room, so I went into the makeshift living room, cleaned it all up, hooked up my computer, my TV stand, my couch. I hooked up my couch so that I could download my butt into it. And the reason I did that was because not only would I be painting the walls in this living room, this big living room, but I'm also going to be painting the floors. The rest of my flooring is going to be done by professionals, but the big living room / family room, since it has concrete floors, I can use concrete garage and porch paint, and that's made with a really hard enamel, so you could literally park a car on top of it. So doing that myself actually saved me about $9,000, as opposed to hiring a contractor and having it tiled like I was originally going to. So yeah, the whole point of moving all this stuff up and cleaning up this room was, one, it desperately needed it. I mean, look at it. Two, it gave me a place to sit that's away from my workspace, so I can have a living space that felt like living rather than feeling like I was camping out in my own house. The other thing is that it didn't need to be pretty, it just needed to be functional. And the other reason I did it was because I just could not move around in that dining room and kitchen, and it caused me anxiety every time I walked in there. It looked like a hoarder's nest. It was so bad. So yeah, even though this was only going to be in there for about 5 days, it was worth it for my own sanity. Once I was done with that, a second set of LED lights came in, so I went ahead and put those into the kitchen. And then while I was at it, I was like, well, you might as well go ahead and do the high density LEDs in the family room, because the backing tape on those are white and most of the walls are going to be white in here. And by putting them on first and painting second, it means that I can edge my paint right up over the top of that tape and hide any of the electronics. That means I don't need a diffuser. I don't need to hide them behind molding. I can just put them up, paint right up to the actual LEDs themselves, and call it a day. And I'm really happy with these LEDs. They're high density, so they have more LEDs per square foot than a regular everyday strip light. They're also what's called chip on board, which means that each individual LED is controlled by a chip. And if you want to, you can program those and make them strobe or pulse or fade. These are not RGBs. If you're ever going to do strip lights and you're just wanting it for actual radiant lighting, just get the white ones. Only get RGBs if you genuinely want to have some funky colors. I just find that I never use the color features on them. So for me, I'm using the LEDs like an actual light source rather than accent lighting. So for me, it makes more sense to get the white ones. That way they're dedicated to just that function. After that was done, I finished decorating my kitchen with some teal bottles and some fake flower vines that had teal flowers, teal and white flowers, so they match my kitchen perfect. Then I could finally go into the living room and start the big project by taking all the crap off the walls. Now, here's the thing. The original video, without being edited, was 18 hours long. So I sped the living crap up out of this paint job so that you don't have to sit through this. So I will just tell you what I ended up doing while you're watching me blast through it. I used primer on everything that was bare wood, and I ended up doing 2 coats of that. And that includes the trim, that little bump out ledge. I have no idea what that even is. And anything that wasn't previously painted. Window frame, I went ahead and did that too. Then for the actual painting, I used 3 colors. I used a true white, a really bright white, and all these colors are in satin. The white, I ended up doing 3 coats on, and at some places really could have used 4. Painting in white is kind of a pain. The blue is called Peacock Teal. That's made by Dutch Boy, and it's a teal but has a little bit more of a blue kick to it than a regular teal. It's really bright, it's really in your face, and so I use that sparingly. And what I did was I painted everything that was originally wood, I painted that teal. So every piece of trim, all the baseboards, I wanted it to look kind of like the room was outlined with a teal marker. And the final accent wall, which will be where my curtains were, where that big window is, I used a true neutral gray called Chromed. That was also by Dutch Boy. Now here's a big thing to remember when you're painting a room, especially when you've taken all the stuff out of it. A lot of times people will look at the room that they're painting and think, that's way too much white, or that's way too much gray, or that teal sticks out too much. But what they forget is they're basically prepping a canvas. You don't look at the rough sketch on a canvas and say, well, that doesn't look like a person at all. You have to trust the process, and you have to be patient, because what a lot of people forget is that the wall paint isn't decorations. Your furniture, your pictures, your lighting, all that stuff is the actual art room that goes onto your canvas. So all we're doing here is prepping the canvas so that we can decorate it with our furniture. So right now, and especially whenever we paint the floors, this is going to look like a monolith of white. It's going to look like it's too much. But trust me, we're going to break all that up with rugs and a gigantic couch and pictures on the walls, a ridiculous 80-inch TV, 7 live moose, a pack of very fancy wool, and of course, me. I consider myself a decoration. So if I could give you any piece of advice when it comes to painting a room, it's be patient. You have to have some sort of vision as to what's going to go on the canvas and not judge the canvas itself. So one of the downsides to doing this is that because I was using 3 different colors of paint and each one took 3 coats, this painting session took like 2 or 3 days just to get the walls done. The worst part about painting is waiting for stuff to dry so that you can put on another coat. And again, whenever you're painting with white, it doesn't matter if it says 1 coat white, it's not 1 coat. It never is. That is just a bald-faced lie. There's always going to be bleed through. There's always going to be little lines that you have to paint over. And then on top of that, I'm painting over paneling. So I have to go in between the little paneling lines in order to smash paint into those. And yeah, by the time Friday rolled around and I realized I wasn't going to get the floor done and I wasn't going to have a completed video that was fully furnished and decorated, I was so mad. But I had to tell myself, again, I will always value quality over quantity when it comes to this channel. I wouldn't have been happy publishing a video that was mostly done. So I had to swallow my pride a little bit, grit my teeth, and put it off for another week while I went ahead and knocked out these floors, which also took a few days to do. All right, while you're watching me blast through that, I always like to give a handful of shout outs to other channels that I'm a big fan of. I've shouted a few of these out before, so old school viewers will already know of these channels, but if you haven't heard of them, they're absolutely awesome. The first is probably my favorite cleaning channel, which is kind of odd because it's not really about cleaning. It's about her personality. It's called Feral Tradwife. Her channel at its core is about her holding herself accountable and really learning how to deal with a super cluttered house at times. But her channel is not really about teaching you to clean. This is about her dealing with her everyday life. She has a largish family. 2 of her children are autistic enough to where they'll never be able to live independently. The house gathers clutter really fast, and she has a lot going on. She's a veteran. She has PTSD. A lot of times she gets overwhelmed, but I've never heard her in a bad mood. She is one of the funniest channels out there, and her channel, like I said, is not really about teaching you how to clean or showing you tips and tricks. It's like hanging out with your best friend every episode. Her personality is straight up addictive. If I could only recommend one channel for you to subscribe to on YouTube, that would be it. The next channel is Remy Clog, and that one is kind of the same thing, but she will show you some tips and tricks, and you're kind of along for the ride with her. A lot of people always ask me to shout her out, and I have a few times on the channel. Remy and I have actually been online friends for a while, and at some point, whenever I get over my travel anxiety, I do want to go to the UK and do a collab with her. But great cleaning channel, great personality, super fun to hang out with. My current obsession on YouTube is Tia Weston's $1 house series. She bought a house that was used for massive storage for $1, and she has been renovating that, tearing out the old bad stuff, putting in new stuff, and she's basically redoing this thing from scratch, and it is amazing to watch. Super calm. That's one of those ones that you can put on at night when you're stretched out in bed and just chill. The last one is actually a gaming channel, but don't get scared. Even if you don't like games, Therm is his name, and he is one of the funniest channels out there. He's just a super smart guy who's really, really funny, and there's never a boring episode. That one is like hanging out with your craziest, funniest friend, but it's also got this heart to it that's super, super sweet. If there's any YouTube channel where I wanted to meet the person in real life, it would be Therm or Post 10, one of the two. You'll see what I mean if you watch his channel, because by the end of it, you'll be like, I really wish I could hang out with that dude for a day. All of the links to those channels are in the description. Give them a shout out, give them a subscribe, and give them $1 million, because they all deserve it, except Feral Tradwife. She's a piece of crap. Oh my God, the floor. This was such a huge pain because not only did it require multiple coats, I think it required 4, but you have to paint it in a specific way so that you don't step on it. So basically what I had to do was outline the floor or do cut-ins with a paintbrush. I had to put 3 coats of that on. Then I had to kind of Tetris the outside of the room with a roller. So you would paint in 1 coat about 3 or 4 feet wide. Then you leave the room and wait wait for like an hour for that to dry. Then come back, put on a second coat in that area, and start the first coat on the next. And you just keep repeating that process until the whole room is done. But even after that, it still needed 2 more coats. So I had to wait for a full day for that to dry enough to where I could step on it with socked feet and then do 2 more coats the same manner. Now, if you're wondering if this paint is going to stay and if it's going to chip or if it's going to, smudge or whatever, this is actually made for garage floors and porches, and it's a high enamel paint. It's actually made for high traffic. So I could literally drive my car on this and it wouldn't hurt it. But even if it does, I still have like 2.5 gallons of this left, so I can just touch it up as needed. Again, while I'm doing this, it's going to look like it's too much. It's going to look like the inside of a spaceship, and it's going to be like, oh my God, that is like this monolith of white. Again, trust the process. This is just the canvas. Wait until you see when I put the furnishings and the rugs and all the stuff on the floor. It really does look impressive whenever I'm done with it. So you shut your face, Mom. Mom! Once all that annoying stuff is done and everything is dried for 2 days, it takes 3 full days before this cures enough to walk on it. And I was so excited on that 3rd day when I could finally get in there and start hanging pictures. Then it takes 5 days total before you can put furniture on it. So this last part of the video is my absolute favorite because that's whenever we get to do the artwork on the canvas. While we're wrapping up here, if you didn't know, we have a members only section where you get an extra video, usually in the form of a live stream that's just members only, but I'm going to be doing some actual videos for them very, very soon. And that's stuff that doesn't normally fit on the channel. Like I'll do a live where I'll hang out and just BS with them, but I'm also doing stuff like some cooking videos and some oddball cleanup videos that aren't really meant for the regular channel. I talk about my life in those. I will give updates that aren't really meant for public ears. Like sometimes I go to the grocery store and I hit random old women woman with a stone cold stunner. That kind of stuff I'll talk about with members, but it's not really appropriate to talk about in public. There's 3 tiers to that one. The bottom tier gets you access to Discord. The middle tier gets you the extra videos every week. Those usually happen on a Wednesday. And there's a top tier just for people who want to support the channel in a bigger financial way. I also have a merch store with a whole bunch of t-shirts and coffee mugs and mouse pads and just whatever you want to put the design on. The link to that is in the description. There's a whole bunch of funny stuff in there, a lot of inside jokes on the channel and whatnot. Also, for any of you who are Facebook people, I do have a Facebook page that's linked in the description. If you go to a Facebook page that is not linked in the description of my videos or on my about page, it's not my channel. There are a lot of people out there who rip off my work. They just literally steal my videos and try to make money with them. So I link all my real accounts on this YouTube channel. Next week, I'll be working on my little entryway / parlor, whatever you want to call it. That one will be a fun one because I'm going to get a little funky with that. And really, we're almost done with this house. I got a couple bedrooms that I need to do, but those are going to require a contractor to come in and do some funky stuff with it. But the main part of my house, once I get that entryway done in my dining room, that it'll be finished. The only thing I'm waiting on is flooring, which won't happen until January 20th. I've already paid for the floors. They're just booked up until the 20th of January. So I've got 2 more months of walking on subfloor before it finally gets all done to actual completion. Gross. That sounded gross. Members, I will see you guys on Wednesday. Everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.